reason why I decided to move to South Africa from the United States was a couple of reasons. To slow down a little bit. I call myself semi-retired now. My wife and I, we always wanted to visit Africa, and we did. First place we came was South Africa, and we fell in love with it. The beauty, the people, and we've always wanted to live abroad. As an African American, someone in the diaspora, what better place to live than the continent of Africa if you're going to live abroad? My name is Ahmad Williams. I am from Austin, Texas. Been here in South Africa, Johannesburg, since October of 2024. Hello, I'm Ahmad Williams. I'm African American, now in South Africa. Come on in. Welcome to our home. So this is a condo in Hyde Park. We have a 2-bedroom apartment here. Just me and my wife that lives here. It's very comfortable. We had a place that was similar, maybe just a little bit bigger, a 3-bedroom in the United States on the lake. So the quality is very comparable to what we had in Austin, Texas. And it's considerably less expensive here. Yeah. The cost of living in the United States versus South Africa and some of the other places that I looked at, I think the biggest significant difference would be the housing. I'll say the place we live now, we leased this place. We haven't purchased a home yet because we don't know exactly where we want to be permanently within South Africa. This place that we live in, it's in considered an affluent area. I think our rent is the equivalent of $1,200 a month. In the States, this place would easily be double, maybe 2.5 times that in an equivalent area. Size, probably the cost of a home to purchase, this place would probably easily be $400,000. We have a similar place, a place similar in size, maybe just a little bit bigger, and it was over $500,000 in Austin. And I saw similar prices in Accra. In South Africa, the homes are a lot cheaper. Your money goes a lot further. You can get a large home. If you want a condo, if you want an estate, the price of the home that you could get here in the States, it would easily be two to three times the cost. Now, in terms of entertainment, this is where you really save. My wife and I rarely cook. We eat out like for almost every meal. And honestly, in the States, we did the same thing. We had the income to support it. We live off of a significant amount less now. Food we may spend with eating out for all of our meals. I haven't tallied it up, but I would have to guess it's somewhere maybe around $500 or $600 a month. And that's eating out every meal. The comparison I give my friends is when we had our first trip here, we had a nice restaurant in Melrose Arch, and I had I don't know what the grams are. You guys use a metric, and we use ounces. But I had a 16-ounce bone-in filet with the trimmings, and that cost me the equivalent of $12. And in the States, that would have been easily $70. Like that size of a prime cut of beef, the trimmings. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, yeah. I don't need to make a 6-figure salary here. I can afford to eat out at fine dining. Transportation, we bought a new car. There are model cars here that we don't have in the States. I bought a Chinese car, nice quality, brand new, 7-year warranty. I spent $23,000 on an equivalent car for size, leather, would have easily cost me about 60 grand. The thing is I'm not saying everything is cheaper, Because if you want to have a Mercedes or a BMW or something like that, you're going to pay the same here as you would in the States, maybe even a little bit more because of import tax. But if you're mindful of how you spend your money in that regard, on the clothes, the transportation that you purchase, then yeah, you could live a lot cheaper. But where you're really going to save money is going to be on food, the entertainment, and housing is really where you're going to save. The cost of healthcare and Wi-Fi insurance. We don't currently have a healthcare plan. My wife and I have both been to the doctors, and then just a minute ago I was filling my prescription. We pay out of pocket for those, so we don't have any medical coverage. I've gone to the doctor. I've heard other people's stories, but like I've had full physicals and it cost me maybe the equivalent of like $50 for the visit. My meds, I pay out of pocket. I have 3 meds that I take on a regular basis. To fill those, it's about $30 a month. My wife, she had a visit to where she needed some x-rays. I don't think we've ever spent more than $100 or $200. So like with her x-rays, maybe $200 for that stuff. And that was considered kind of expensive. In the States, my medical premium on a monthly basis on my job, I was spending $900 a month for my family, just on that portion. A doctor's visit, sometimes I would have like a copay of maybe $25, but if I had any x-rays or anything like that, it wasn't uncommon for me to get a bill for several $100 for my portion of a visit. We've been maintaining our lifestyle and our health coverage. We're not spring chickens, we're both around the age of 50. Yeah, we don't spend more than $100 a month on average for our medical needs thus far. First impression of Africa in general when I arrived. It's kind of a tricky question because growing up, things you hear about Africa, they showed us the kids with the large bellies, emaciated limbs, flies, hovering around you. So generally, I think most people, when they were growing up, that's what they saw. Before I got here, I had watched quite a few YouTube videos through some YouTubers, and then as I stated, like the Blantons, and then Dr. Assad. My wife was a big fan of Adrian and Assad, and she watched their videos all the time. So we had an idea that the narrative that we had been fed most of our lives was not accurate. But when we got here, there's something about like when you get here and you can see how developed South Africa is. Like honestly, man, I hate to say this part, but it felt like being in the States a little bit in terms of the infrastructure, and even some pockets of places where you go, you won't notice much of a difference, right? Until people start talking, that's when you'll really notice it because of the different languages. You never know what dialect is going to come out of someone's mouth, what language they're going to be speaking. Getting here, man, I was really surprised at how peaceful and how at home like I felt when we got off the plane and walking around. Like you feel really welcome and you just feel like you belong, which is an odd feeling to be, 10,000 miles away from the place where you were born and you grew up, and you feel more at peace and at home and more welcome in that place than you do in the place that birthed you. As I stated before, anything that I wanted to do here, I feel like I can do, and I feel like I could be successful. Whether it's if I wanted to start a business, if I just wanted to work a 9-to-5, obviously I can't work here, but if I wanted to work a 9-to-5 remote, I could do that. If I wanted to relax, take it easy, I feel like I could do anything. Probably the major way that it's changed my outlook, and I was kind of on this path anyway, enjoying the people in my life. Spending time with my wife is one of my favorite things, and just having a conversation with her, enjoying each other's company without the stress of like the hustle and bustle of daily life and trying to earn as much as possible to maintain a lifestyle full of materialism. It is an amazing thing to not have to worry about that. And so probably the major thing the major shift is I don't have to worry about that as much. Like earning as much money as possible and trying to keep up maintaining a very, very expensive home or maintaining a very, very expensive car or very expensive vacations and so on and so forth. It's a little different than the States. The pace is a little bit slower. I get up generally a late start in the morning. My wife and I will have breakfast, a little bit of coffee, conversation, and then we try to get out on the town and learn our surroundings, because even though we've been here close to 8 months, there's still a lot to see and a lot to do. We love getting out and seeing the people in the community. My favorite thing is the people watch. The beginning of our day is like that, and then usually by mid-afternoon, we're back in the house and we're kind of doing our own thing. We just kind of hang out. So a lot slower pace. I'm from Austin, but I grew up a little north of Austin, Texas, small town. The typical thing that you do, you graduate high school, you go to college. I think you guys call it university. You start your career. I did that. I started pretty young. I graduated college at 23, and I happened to be married at the time. I had a young son. So immediately after university, I started a career in transportation. And I just kind of worked my way up through the ranks, what you normally do. I raised 2 kids with that profession. They're both adults now. In that career, I traveled quite a bit throughout the state of Texas. It was a lot of long days, a lot of 10, 12, 14-hour days. And I did that for nearly 25 years. Somewhere maybe 15, 20-year mark, Well, it never really set well with me, like the pace of work in the States. Like the American dream, it's attainable, but at times it can feel a bit elusive. You can be, you have your highs and your lows, probably more lows, and you work low times where you feel a little disheartened and you feel like you're just kind of spinning your wheels or in the rat race. So somewhere around the 10 or 15-year mark, I felt like, this really isn't for me, man, and I need to find a way out. But I really couldn't see one. And then 8, 9 years ago, my first marriage, I went through a divorce. My kids were close to approaching graduation of high school. So I began to think about like what my exit strategy was going to be now that they were going to be leaving the house. And I began looking abroad, potential places to live and then what I would do, what my life would look like. And then I met my current wife close to 7 years ago. She had a similar upbringing or a similar story in her adult life. And when we met, and she had a similar thought process in terms of how to get out of the rat race. And she had coincidentally had been looking at living abroad as well. She was thinking about Costa Rica. And so we were really aligned. We knew that we didn't want to work until like the normal US pace of working until we were 65 or 70. And that's what it was looking like we were going to have to do. So we began to travel. I took my first international trip with her almost 7 years ago. Man, we haven't looked back since, and we just kept looking for the next thing. And everywhere we went, we would think about what it would look like to live here. What is the cost of living? What are homes cost? What would the lifestyle be like? But our eye was always on a trip to Africa. Initially, we were looking at Ghana because Ghana was a real hot place at the time. People were looking at Accra. You would hear about Dirty December. You would hear about how wonderful Ghana was. And I began looking at home prices. And coincidentally, it looked like the cost of living in Accra was very similar to Austin, which was a little disheartening. I got a little discouraged at first. And then one day, man, I stumbled across a video, another YouTuber, Wode. He was interviewing the folks from the real South Africa. I watched that video. They were talking about how wonderful South Africa was. And Mark Blanton said something about obtaining the American dream in South Africa. Didn't really sit right with me at the time. I was thinking like, why would I go to Africa to obtain the American dream? It would be to get away from it. But once I got here, I understood what he was saying. All the things that you strive for, the States, as a Black person, as any person in the States, you look for opportunity. You want to see the fruits of your labor. You want to work hard. You want to see something for your ingenuity, your hard work. You just want to see the fruits of your labor. At times in the States, it doesn't matter how talented you are. At times, not all the time. You know, you can work really hard. You could be the smartest person in the room. As a person of color, sometimes, you know, like you can hit a wall. What Mark Blanton was saying was, if you worked hard, you had an idea, you had a little bit of ingenuity, your efforts really could bear fruit. You could have the nice car, the big home. You could have all of those things here. And so I really understood it when I got here. Or if you would, or like me, my goal is to relax a little bit and not work until I'm 65 or 70, not be in the rat race and the hustle and bustle. So, and that's what my life was in the States. I was trying to get away from that. I was looking for peace of mind. I was looking for a place where it felt like home. And when we touched down in South Africa, man, it immediately felt like home. The people look like you. They're friendly. I can't tell you how many faces I've seen since I've been on the continent that look like someone from back home, or the things that people do, it's very familiar. So we say that we're the same, like all over the world. Like you'll find somebody or something that's very familiar. The first thing is how welcoming they were. Another thing that's kind of funny to me is like how it surprised me, and it's kind of humorous to me, is someone told me that, you know, they look up, and everybody may not feel this way, I realize that, but it was just something one person told me, that they look up to, they view the African Americans in the U.S. as kind of like the big brother. There are things that people here emulate about African American culture. It was surprising to see the impact that African American culture has on people in Africa. And it works both ways. There are things about African culture that we look up to, and we've always been envious to some degree of our brothers and sisters on the continent. Definitely the sense of identity that you guys have. You know, we're a little bit lost in the diaspora because, you know, we were taken from the continent. And we've been, you know, the last several hundred years, we've been trying to find ourselves. But it was definitely surprising to see the influence that African-American culture has on people here in South Africa. And then some of the similarities that we have, like things that they wouldn't necessarily see on TV. It's just like the way that the people here interact with each other, and mannerisms, things about style. Even like the gold teeth that we see, they'll have like open face gold teeth. Those aren't necessarily things you see on TV, but it is humorous, it is surprising, and it makes you feel good to kind of see like there's something in our DNA that causes us all to have similarities. So that's always interesting to me. I want to say we had a leg up, and I want to thank Dr. Assad and Adrian mostly because they welcomed us, and you know, we were fortunate that there were people before us that had kind of paved the way. You know, like there were the Blantons, even though we haven't met the Blantons from the real South Africa, and then Dr. Assad and then Doc Nikki. Those people were here, and my wife followed them, and she felt a connection with them, and we met with them on our first visit here. When we came permanently, we were able to connect with them and join in community with them. So Assad had already built a network of people, and there's some other folks as well. We felt welcome, like Dr. Assad and everyone here, the African American community who've made the transition. They're all connected really well. There are gatherings. Everyone does a great job of making new people feel welcome. So I felt like that made our transition a lot easier. So we didn't really have to build a community. We just had to find the people within that community that we connected with and we hang out with and we fellowship with. And yeah, we definitely feel welcome. I feel welcome by everyone that I come across. The African American community, the South Africans who we've connected with, man, they call us brother, welcome sister, and the people will say welcome home. That does something to you. So yeah, I definitely feel welcome. Probably in South Africa. South Africa is a very interesting place in terms of identity, because in the States you have black and white mostly, and then you have Hispanic or Latino. Here on the continent, You have tribes, and in South Africa you have black, white, colored, Indian. In the States, when you're brown, if you're black, you're just black. Here, when you see someone my complexion, they could be considered black or they could be considered colored. And I joke about this. You don't have to act, in terms of how I see myself, you see the world as a lot more complex, just black and white in terms of skin color. You can't make assumptions about people and who they are and what their background is based off the color of their skin, because they could be from South Africa, they could be from Mozambique, Zimbabwe, they could be Xhosa, they could be Zulu, they could be from a number of different tribes. It makes you question your perspective of the world and your viewpoint and how you view things and how you view people. I think it's changed me in that way. It's not very profound, but I try to pause a little bit and I try to listen to people, and it makes me a little bit, I've always been a curious person, but it makes me a little bit more interesting to hear someone's story. And I'll tell you one thing also, when you're in the States, it's not common for people to speak multiple languages. Like, you may find someone who is bilingual, so someone who speaks English and maybe Spanish, English and maybe like German because they are of German descent. But there's an attitude in general, if someone does not grasp English, does not have a strong hold on the English language, that people get annoyed with them or even sometimes look down on them. But when you come here, you realize that someone may not have a strong grasp of English, but English may be their sixth language that they speak. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for people on this continent in particular, and I want to learn from them, and I kind of look up to them a little bit because, like, man, their life experience and the people that they can relate to and the languages they speak, man, I'm envious of it. Yeah. I feel more free, actually. Again, I'm living off about a third of what we made in the United States, and I feel like there's a lot more. Now, this may be more psychological for me. I feel like I have a lot more possibility for earning, for investment here than I did in the States. Part of my, like I said, the reason why it may be psychological for me is I grew up poor, even though I was able to maintain I made a decent living, a really good living, and I had a very nice lifestyle that I had built for myself. I still had the mentality of scarcity because I grew up poor. So I felt like I had to hold on to what I had. Over here, because the cost of living is a lot less, and the mentality, there's a lot less hustle and bustle here. I feel like I can afford to take some risks here, even with my mentality of scarcity because of the fear of poverty, that I have. I feel like I can afford to take risks here. The peace is more valuable than actual money, and I live comfortable here. Don't get me wrong, I do. I make less money. I live just as comfortable. And I live a much more peaceful life. So yeah, man, I feel wealthy. I feel like a millionaire over here, even though I may not technically be one. I feel very, very wealthy here, very, very wealthy. And that's the thing that it's the thing that I try to communicate to people back home. But it's one of those things where it's hard to explain. You just have to experience it. So yeah. Time with people that I care about, and that's going to be a little counterintuitive, considering that the family that I left behind in the States. But I feel like when I speak to them over the phone, I feel like I'm more interested, I'm more engaged in the conversation. At home, I could be in your face, I could be on the phone, and you could be just a few minutes away, but my mind would be thousands of miles away, and I was always thinking about something else. I always had a bill on my mind, or I always had an aspect of my job on my mind. I thought about my job like nonstop. I was not mentally present. So even though I'm physically further away, I feel like when I have interactions with loved ones and friends, I'm more present. And that's something that I didn't have in the United States. Yeah, like what's fascinating is I think if you are educated and you worked in business or you worked in any profession in the United States, I think it's very hard for you to come here and not see opportunity, even though there's a lot of infrastructure here and this is a developed nation. In the United States, people are always on the go and it's 24 hours a day. Like you're going, and you're trying to make money to buy more things. There's some good things that come out of that, like the levels of service that you get, like whether it's at restaurants or hotels or even at car dealerships and things like that. The levels of service are really, really good, right? And here, this is what I've noticed on the continent of Africa, and I can say the continent of Africa because I've been to more than one country. Things are the pace is a little slower. Now people value family time more, and when it's quitting time, it's quitting time. From what I've seen, people don't work through, not everybody. It's not a culture of like when you're off work, you're answering calls and you're trying to provide a service to people. So that's good socially, but in terms of service levels, there's some missed opportunities. So for me, the opportunities that you see, like if you have a little bit of capital, you have a little bit of ingenuity and a little bit of hard work, like you can find an opportunity to close the gap between those two worlds of where it's constant hustle and bustle and to where when it's 5 p.m. we shut off completely. Like you can find a happy medium, and there's a lot of opportunities. There's opportunity in a lot of different areas, particularly in the service industries. So yeah, I've noticed that definitely. Man, the biggest thing is going to be family, being close to family. As I mentioned, I have kids. Between my wife and I, we have five children. They're all adults. So we've had to sacrifice being close to them, our parents. That was a significant thing that we had to make peace with. We had to tell ourselves we only get one life, and I have to focus on the thing that is going to make me happy. You know, we did our part in raising our kids. We did the best we could. We weren't perfect, but we did the best we could. And we devoted the majority of our adulthood to caring for them and raising them. And I try to do for my mother. We try to do for our parents what we can. You know, saying that we're going to have to miss out on some birthdays, or we're going to have to miss out on some Mother's Days or some family gatherings. That was a significant sacrifice, but the level of comfort, peace that we experience here, it's been worth it so far. Our hope is, and our desire is that our kids would come and visit, and then that they will want to make a transition, or at least a couple of them will want to make the transition in the future. We want to show them that there's another way, that they don't have to, you know, be in the grind of the U.S. work culture for 30 or 40 years. And so if we can create a way and for at least one of them, then we feel like that sacrifice is worth it. Looking ahead, where do I see myself and my wife in the next 5 years? I'd say being a permanent resident of South Africa. Her and I live in our dream, which was use South Africa as a home base. It's where our home is, and we travel the continent of Africa, visiting the different countries and exploring like all of the wonderful things that Africa, the continent of Africa, has to offer. One, visit soon. Have a plan. Do a little bit of research. First of all, the continent of Africa is very, very large. South Africa, the country of South Africa, is very large. The climate in KwaZulu-Natal is different from the climate in Gauteng, and is different from the climate in the Western Cape. So do a little bit of research and visit those places. Don't be afraid to explore. Reach out to the people who are here for some insight. Save your money. Make some temporary sacrifices in the United States in your current life. Start to make some adjustments. Make some sacrifices. Let go of some of the materialism because what you save there can go a long way here. So yeah, just start thinking about the things that you don't need over there, and it'll pay dividends when you do come here. Man, honestly, just before I moved to South Africa, there's really nothing I could say. What I would really do is I would probably go back 10 years, 10 or 5 years, and I would plant the seed, because there's gonna be a path for you to peace, enjoyment, early retirement, and it's gonna be on the continent. So I would go back 5 or 10 years, and I would tell myself that, and I would have started preparing then. Because that's one of the things we tell each other. It's like, man, one of the things when we got here, I told my wife, I was like, man, I wish someone would have presented the idea of living abroad to me 15 years ago. And if I were presented with the opportunity to move to South Africa and let my children attend school here and finish raising them here, I would have done it. I feel like I had a missed opportunity, because I felt like it would have been an opportunity that my kids would have been able to experience in the United States. I would have been able to send them to private school here. They would have been around some African culture. They would probably they only speak one language now. They would probably speak 2 or 3 languages now, at a minimum of 3 languages. They would just be well-rounded people. My fear now is that they don't see a life other than the one that they're living now. That's my fear. And that by the time that they realize that there's an alternative route, they'll be my age. And they would have missed out on a major opportunity to enjoy life a lot sooner than they will have in going the traditional path in the United States. Be open, don't be afraid. Come to the continent of Africa. Africa is welcoming to all people, especially for the people in the diaspora. Don't be afraid. Don't believe the propaganda that you hear in the media, or the traditional stories or propaganda that we've heard about Africa. Is there crime? Yes. Are there places that are unsafe? Yes. But there's crime in the United States. There are places that are unsafe in the United States. If you're diligent and you're aware, then you will be fine. If you rank places, like look at the top rankings of like the highest crime places in the world, that changes frequently, but I don't think you will find South Africa or Ghana at the top of the list. I think the United States is probably one of the most dangerous places in the world, particularly for people like us. So be open, don't be afraid, explore.